discussion. This one I'm super excited about. We are talking about today the war on masculinity and the gay agenda. Before we start, always you need to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. Okay, Watch What Happens Black, a network created by Black creatives for Black creatives. We are changing the world, and it is going to blow up. Just give it a few more months. so, so welcome to Black Coffee. As you can see, we have some amazing panelists, and we are going to jump right in. So if you do not know, the Black community, Black people, they're always talking about this war on masculinity or this emasculation of the Black man. When we see things like for Vogue, I think it was Vogue cover or some cover that he did with that long coat, people were in the comments saying that they were trying to emasculate us. And there's some agenda. When we talk about the little Bootsy videos or the Pastor Troy, when he was talking about Lil Nas X wearing all pink to one of the award shows, he made like this huge video talking about Black men are not men anymore and all these other things. So that is kind of where we're starting off of the conversation today. My first question to my panelists are, how does it make you feel when certain members of the Black community say there is a war on masculinity? Anybody can jump in.
Well, my immediate reaction is always just like an extreme eye roll, because I just feel like if masculinity or the idea of masculinity can be undone by femininity or things that are viewed as feminine, then you really have no argument to stand on. Because if all it takes is to strip a man of his masculinity is if he put on a skirt or wears pink or wears something floral or whatever, or he's not a man anymore, then he was never a man to begin with. If he can be undone, if his entire identity can be undone by a color, a person, a woman, a silhouette, whatever. I just think it's a really stupid, really stupid conversation to even have or bring up, because there is no war. It's just people are finally able to express themselves the way they see fit. And just because you don't like it, you think they're trying to attack you and what you're about because you're fragile. But
agility.
Yeah, that fragile word is really good, because I think my first reaction is to ask them to define things, because define masculinity and then define femininity to me. And if you can wrap that up and then debunk that with the color pink, then I will give it to you. But I can already foresee that you can't. So that means that your whole construct of what a gender is wrapped up in material things that you are either putting on your body or using to express your body or using to express your thoughts. And for me, that is just, it constitutes a lack of education and a lack of thought. You probably need to read a book if your opinion on a gender is wrapped up in any type of vestige, color, or any material thing that can be like placated or like held in your hand.
I want to second and third both of y'all. Stupidity is the first thing that comes to mind. Also, delusion. I just feel like these are, the saying like, oh, you just want to be oppressed. It's like you find things, especially for people who already are in oppressive positions, when they feel like other groups of people are finally getting, marginalized groups of people are finally getting some type of elevated platform. It's like, oh, now suddenly I feel attacked and suddenly my identity doesn't matter. First of all, masculinity is not owned by men. Masculinity and femininity isn't owned by any gender, first of all. So to say that somebody can be emasculated as if masculinity is the default of men is just completely stupid to me.
And it's also like, I never hear women say that. Like, I never hear a woman say to a masculine or a butch female, oh, you're trying to defeminate me, or whatever the word would be. Like, what?
Effeminate.
Feminize.
Defeminize, effeminate, child. It's all made up, delusional.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think like I guess my follow-up question, if I'm allowed to even do that, is war from who? Like who is at who is like who would be like whose agenda would it be? So when you say like what are my ideas about like the war on masculinity? It's like who's competing? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? I'm actually confused. Actually,
So I think just some of the comments that I've always seen, or just the pages that I follow, whatever. It seems like, you know how they always associate gayness with whiteness, and it seems like a lot of people kind of think that there's this agenda by the white man to demasculate the black man, even though, I mean, of course, that is a systemic thing that happened back in slavery for sure, and I think that people still kind of have that same mentality. Instead of like buck breaking, now it's okay, now we're dressing more feminine, or people are showing more emotion, or the idea of what feminine is, excuse me, or you know what I mean, like that whole idea. I think they're trying to do now into this generation is why there's some agenda
And
or whatever, or they're higher.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a whole insult to the people who are actually the people, our ancestors who were victims of like buck breaking and like being abused by their slave masters and trying to be like humiliated. And I feel like that's an insult to them, because that's completely different than someone today who's embracing their femininity and embracing all parts of their identity and being celebrated for it. That has nothing to do with being humiliated and abused. Like,
yeah. Piggybacking off of what you just said, Tom, I feel like we had to be this thing during that time, during the time of slavery and oppression. And so we attributed that to our behaviors moving forward. And now we think we must be that in order to survive. And survival is not necessarily, in terms of this topic, an issue, which somebody would debate, but we could also talk about that too. But I think that it is sort of a sad angle, because they had to be that, and now we have the ability to come out of that, but we're still oppressing ourselves by it. You know, so I do agree with that.
I appreciate it.
I also feel like it's not by the white man. I think, if anything, it's most upheld by the Black community sometimes. And I think that really is like we are now the ones pushing the tool that was used against us back then. Now we are the actual ones with the hand on the gun, you know?
Well, it also I feel like it comes back to the fact, for me anyway, is like, for a lot of people, especially for a lot of oppressed people, the only way they can feel power, or the only way they can feel worthy, is to oppress other people. Agreed. So now that they have the ability to put their foot on somebody's neck, because now they're on top of somebody, now that they're not at the absolute bottom, now that they have the power to do that, they take that to the umpteenth degree. And like, I personally have an experience, like personally, like to my physical being and body and situation, like I haven't experienced a lot of like Black males who are that ignorant to actually come out of their face to say some disrespectful shit. But to watch a lot of the ways that I don't want to say society because that's so general, but a lot of the ways that a lot of these like directors, filmmakers are perpetuating these storylines for a Black man in relation to a gay Black man. A lot of the times these stories are being written to like almost exacerbate this storyline where the Black straight man has to hate the homosexual Black man. And I just don't understand where that's coming from. Like, to be very honest, I don't know if it's the white man. I don't know if it starts with the Black man, but I feel as though like it comes from a wide array of different places, and it's all culminating in this one space where it's just all of this anger and animosity towards our demographic as gay Black men.
I will say I feel like most of us contribute to it or have contributed to it in the past, but it does, for me, I think it stems from, of course, white supremacy and patriarchy. Like, they go hand in hand, and how, of course, after slavery and segregation and like all of that, having that entrenched like in our culture, I feel like we picked up a few habits. Like you said, the oppressive behaviors, like they want to be the oppressors now. So it's not.
Okay.
Damn, where was I? Oh, basically mirroring our historical oppressors. I feel like they're in a way, like, because for me, I grew up in a conservative, like, Black, heteronormative family. So I hear these comments from men all the time. My grandfather and my brother, they would say stuff like, "Oh, they want to make you." They would say stuff like, "Oh, they want to make you wear feminine clothing. They want to make you watch shows with two dads or whatever, to make Black people less cohesive and to disrupt the Black community and to specifically target the Black man, as if the Black man isn't the most, quote unquote, powerful in the Black community. Like, Black straight men have the most leeway in our community." So I feel like it's all unwarranted, and it's just a way, like you said, to finally put their foot on somebody else's neck.
Can I ask a question just to the group also? Like, because I just thought of something while you were speaking, because you grew up in a Black conservative environment. Do you think that some of this comes from the Black church as well? I just was reading.
The majority comes from the Black church.
Okay.
Yes, it does. Yes,
because I didn't necessarily grow up in, like, every single Sunday I was in the Black church, but I know I have friends who have this, like, pressure pushed, like, thrust upon them that they still into their 30s, almost damn near 40, can't shake.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. I was raised in a church. I have two of my uncles are ministers. My grandmother's Seventh-day Adventist. Like, I was all about that life. Was raised Baptist. Ain't that no more. But I did come up in that kind of world, and it is a teaching that just stems from the biblical teaching that being gay is an abomination. And so it is a sin, and all sin is,
punishable
terrible in the eyes of God.
Which is something else written by the white man, but...
Correct. But I also wanted to pose something, because do you guys ever notice, I'm sure you do, that this conversation never gets brought up if a gay man presents masculine? Because, like, if this conversation only comes up if, for lack of a better term, a man is like this. Y'all know what that means. That it only comes up like that. But if it was someone who we would deem as trade, and you would never know that, oh, he's gay, he's not accused of being, dismantling Black masculinity, because he is masculine, So,
but then it comes back to this conversation of what the fuck is masculine? Like, what the fuck is masculine? Like, I don't even know. Like, because if it's sweatpants, then Trisha Miranda is masculine. Like, I don't understand what the gag is. Because
sorry. I feel like what they mean by masculinity is actually hyper masculinity. It's like this hyper masculine form that ends up being toxic to everyone else, because you're trying to reach this, like, unobtainable image of what a man should be, and when they can't reach that, or they see somebody who is not that, it's like an attack on their core. For some reason, they feel like it's an attack to them, so they have to defend themselves and attack first, and it creates this cycle of oppressing your own people in your own community.
Yeah, I do agree that, like, we here don't know what masculinity is, but defined from a societal view, it would be the performance of strength, the performative idea that there's, like, the performance of no vulnerability, no softness, no nothing that is nothing that can be beat. So if it has a sign of weakness, or even if it's collaborative, that's also seen as weak. Like, the strength of it is apparently coming from, like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm saying, and I'm the head of the household because of that. I don't listen to other people. I make the rules, and I perform that.
Can I ask one more question while we're still here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so just not going backwards, but just to the fact of, like, more the straight cisgender Black male oppressing more of the other communities. or the other demographics within the Black experience, I feel as though a lot of the times that Black man is covering up for something else. So in the intersection of this DL man or this straight man being interested in gay men, where do they lie? Because they're not straight and they're not gay and just trade or DL. So where do we put these men who are sexually attracted to us but publicly ashamed of us?
See, I don't think this argument is, I'm sorry, Tom. I don't think this argument is specifically about being gay. The argument is about being effeminate. I think that is the issue there, because there are plenty gay men who you would not know are gay, and they don't have the same experience with whatever. Now, they may be expressive, they may wear whatever they want to wear, but they present as what everyone thinks a man should present as. And I know it's such a general term, and I know it's a bullshit term, but hey, whatever. But that's what it is. So like,
it's masculinity versus sexuality.
Right.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Thank you.
That's what I think. And if I don't think that your masculinity has to match your sexuality, but your sexuality can't mask your masculinity, if that makes sense. And that's the problem that most cis straight people, and I hate like saying it from the guys of like Black men, because it's not all Black men, but in our particular community, it is pretty prevalent. And so like, I just think that is the issue, that like you really have to, for people to understand and to accept you, you have to like have this particular package that, you know, is made easily digestible.
Okay, I just want to tag on and say, you asked about people who aren't really labeled DL or gay or straight. Where do we place them? I feel like they can still be. I mean, labels are sometimes overrated anyway. But my idea of straight is like someone who is predominantly attracted to the opposite sex rather than strictly attracted, because I really don't think that exists. So it's natural for humans to be attracted to other humans. It's just that most of the time, straight men in general don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to process those emotions. Like, oh my goodness, this man is feminine and I have a slight attraction to him. So to combat that, I must hate him with all my wrath. And I feel like that's where a lot of it comes from too.
Thanks, y'all.
Now, just to kind of throw it out, I mean, I guess we kind of touched on this. Let me know if we did or not. But I mean, do we feel like the gay community, or just like maybe the Black community in general, well, especially gays, like kind of perpetuate and hold up that narrative that like masculinity is at like the top, or it's the most desirable thing, and people who are feminine or, you know, not as whatever, are at the bottom, or like are less than, or maybe even treated like women in the society of gay men. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, I definitely feel like in any society, in any culture, in anything, compartmentalizing is what we do. So we want to be able to understand and grasp roles and ideas and who's supposed to do what, to feel like we're doing the right thing. So I think that's a worldly thing. I think it's a human thing. And I think it's an unhealthy thing, but I think it's the thing that we do in terms of identification and association. Like, what am I to you versus like, what do I feel? What do I want to be every day? And that might change as well, but we feel like we have to sort of choose so that we can perform our role properly. But sometimes who you are, what you do is not aligned with the role that you assume. And then that confuses everybody. And they're like, what are you doing? You can't be, you can't like have press on nails and be a top, or you can't, you like that kind of thing sexually, or like, I'm just specifically talking about like the gay community. But it goes way past that, way more than that. Like,
that was so specific though. I'm so sorry. Just the image though, it took me out.
Because ultimately, yes, I mean, if you do want a certain energy around you, that's really what it is. It's like, what energy do you attract? and what energy do you feel? Because people might be like, whoa, what is this? But if you are a gay man and you are attracted to a masculine energy, that also could be a woman who is extremely more has a bit more testosterone in her system or in her behavior naturally. You see what I'm saying?
And they'll catch you, girl. They'll catch you. They'll
been
catch you because you'll be like, "Ooh,
right, been goofed,
why am I feeling these feelings?"
especially in Atlanta. Sorry.
Why do I feel this in my undercarriage? Like, what is going on?
And it's the same for those who, assume a straight, men who assume a straight identity. They're attracted to femininity. A lot of times they're attracted to feminine men as well.
Exactly.
Humans are attracted to humans. It's literally a balance. It's just the energy, like you said, what attracts you more. That's it.
And then it's so weird because of these masculinity and sexuality are just kind of wrapped into one another in this way where it's like we're talking about what position you like in sex based on how you're quantifying whether you're a man or not, and it just is like super it's just not parallel for me because I don't think that my masculinity is whether you know what I'm saying, whether my masculinity is a numerical inch size, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's it's so deep rooted because even in regular houseware stuff, if you look at an outlet, there you have the male side and you have a female side. The male port is the one that goes into the female port. That's technically what it's called in whatever. And I think because the world for such a long time has been viewed in a binary world or in that kind of idea that we equate certain things with certain ideas. And it's not, I don't think necessarily think that is the bad thing, because it literally is just the human's way of trying to understand something's function, something's purpose. So for example, when a straight guy who doesn't have a homophobic bone in his body, and he'll ask me something like, okay, so who's the girl and who's the boy? It's a stupid ass question. We're both men, and none of us, we both have penises. But I understand what you mean, because you want to know who is taking the dick and who's not taking the dick. I get it, but I think the issue comes when we tie too much to those ideas. Just because you take a penis doesn't mean you're the weaker sex, or just because you whatever have you. I think what we're going through now, what we're experiencing now with not the introduction, but for lack of a better term, introduction of these non-binary ideals, is that we're breaking those chains of thinking, because it's not a bad thing. It just comes from science and biology, a man and a woman produce, and it's not a bad thing, but it's when you take those ideas and you run with them to then oppress and then to denigrate something that you feel has more power just because it goes into something, if that makes sense.
And sometimes what it comes down to is a discrepancy in word choice. You're just sometimes saying some really stupid shit. And it's based on the fact of for simply emasculate versus dehumanize. A lot of the times, we as a Black collective are being dehumanized. It has nothing to do with these binary genders you were talking about. It's anytime you land on new ground, it's going to take time to figure out what to say, how to say it, who to say it to, and when to divulge these certain things. So yeah.
I don't know if that answered all of. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry, I forgot what it was.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. We migrated, and I love it. That's what the conversation is. I do want to kind of just bring up, just to kind of just tie it all together with this. And I guess since we are all dancers in here in this masculine thing, we kind of talk about this. If you have watched my Cash It show before, we kind of had a whole discussion about masculinity and had different people up there just within dance. And I kind of wanted to say, like, do you think, because, you know, like, we talked about men dancing, what the idea of masculinity is, of what men should dance like. Yeah, like, do you think there is a racial element to masculinity within dance? And is it easier for people of non-color to get by without conforming to these ideas of what masculine is?
I'm like, I gotta write this question down. Like,
But Robert, you're gonna be the person to answer it because Robert.
I'm like, okay.
I know. Sorry, I know. It's heavy. So yeah.
It's a great question, though. I mean,
no, so I'm saying, do you think there's a racial element to masculinity within dance?
I think there's a racial nuance, but I won't say that it's specific to any race because it happens in any video. If it's a Minaj video or a Taylor Swift video, like you watch the video, you see the male counterpart, the male interest, and it could be any race, but there's this perpetuated idea aesthetically that it's going to look like, what it needs to look like in order to hold that alpha male role, and that kind of goes in any race, I believe. There are nuances once we isolate the Black community and see it. There are nuances there, but I do think it extends to all races about what the main leading male looks like, behaves like, mannerisms type of thing.
Can I ask Robert a question really quickly?
Yeah.
So based on, I don't know if you can encompass your career in like these next 2 seconds, but like, have you ever felt that your more masculine side has been rewarded more loudly than your feminine side, or have you noticed that some of your non-Black counterparts get praised for their more feminine attributes while dancing than you do for yours?
I can most definitely specifically say that when someone knows, they have a knowledge of your sexuality, there then becomes an idea of like, okay, well, you need to make sure you can do this. You need to make sure you can be masculine. And it's like, if they don't know, like if they don't implicitly know what you like when you go to sleep, it becomes less of an issue. So for me, like, I've never hidden about my sexuality. And because of that, I've been very clear and open and expressive about when I want to do something that's more feminine, or however you want to put it. And with that knowledge, even my own mentors have said, you need to cut your hair, or you need to do this and do that. And that has made me feel like, you know, like, I mean, I have that inside of me, absolutely, because it's there. But I'll do it if I want to do it, not because you asked me to do it. I'll do it when I want to cut my hair. Not because I need to prove to you that I have it in me. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I feel that for sure, yeah.
But that is a good point. I don't know, the second half, I don't have that much experience with, just in terms of like non-colored people being rewarded for it. I haven't quite noticed that, but now also.
I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say hell yes, because because at the end of it,
okay.
Because like when we think about it, because there are people who I don't even know what the word fame means, but there are people who get attention for dancing in heels who are dancing in a wedge. That's point number one, and or a kitten heel or something something crazy who aren't really. I don't even want to say can't dance, but they're just not exuding.
You said it.
Exuding a certain je ne sais quoi when you slick on that tight anaconda skin heel, vegan obviously because we don't kill animals, but there would be no that without Jonte, without Sean Bankhead on the Tyra Banks show in like 2005. You know what I'm saying? So there are these implications like right now I feel, and because I can see a lot of non-Black men who are extremely I don't even want to say feminine or flamboyant or something, but like they're dancing in heels, and I'm just like, okay, that's really cool, but you're not even taking into account. I can tell you're not taking into account the Black queer visionaries who preceded you.
Can I also add something to that? I 100% agree, first and foremost, but also that, and I don't necessarily think that that's a sexuality or masculinity, femininity thing. I think that's just Black people in general, if I'm gonna be honest. Because before, and I hate to say this, but before, I don't hate to say it, before we are gay, we are Black, in terms of when you first recognize somebody. And I think it is always going to be more acceptable for any non-person, whether gay or this or that, to be more popularized than the Black counterpart. So if you put two gay people beside each other, the more popular gay person, and it's like if they,
I think that is a matter of representation, because I can only speak from like from a theater kind of background, because that's where mainly I have worked. And I can specifically say, like, there are a lot of shows that are written for the gay experience, but there's only one show that I can think of that is written for the Black gay experience. And because of that, these shows are casted and are worked with and are worked around white gay men.
And are these stories being written by the people that they're, like, if it's a gay Black story, is it written by a gay Black man?
Like I said, I can only think of one, and it's called A Strange Loop. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. It is literally, it changed my life. But that's it. That's literally the only one. So like I've auditioned for like Kiki Boots. I don't know how many times or whatever. I Can Dance in Heels. Blah 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 blah. But there's a specific look that they go for when they're casting the angels, which are the drag queen, blah, 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 blah. So there's only one particular role written for a Black gay character, and that's the character that Billy Porter played for all those years. That's it. So that is it. That's it. That's all we have. And so, but if I was to audition for like Book of Mormon, I can only audition for the African villager character, and I'm an African villager. You know, that's a problem in itself, but the show is meant to be that way. Or if I was to audition for like Rent or whatever, I could play Collins, but Collins is a masculine presenting Black gay man. Or if I was to go, you know, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Same for TV shows. It is because I think gayness has been specifically because
also just because I feel like I remember what Robert was saying about like Black people being able to or like our non-Black counterparts just sometimes being more prolific just because they are non-Black. But like it's crazy because I feel like sometimes even white people get rewarded for being Black before Black people get rewarded for being Black. Yeah. It's like the craziest thing.
Always.
I think that's a reflection of how racism trickles down into different aspects and communities of life. Like we've spoken on it in dance, and I know James definitely had a segment on when he was doing Cash Shit about how lack of Black representation also exists within dance and arts, which you feel should represent a vast selection of people, backgrounds, races, and stuff like that. So I think sexuality is no exception. And I think I'm with you, Brandon, in trying to find different gay romances, because I love watching that shit too. But there's not enough of true, real, genuine Black gay stories. And I really feel like that's because, and it's definitely not, I'm just listing different factors, but I know I kind of cut off in the beginning when we were talking about the idea, what is Black masculinity? And the war masculinity within just our culture specifically. And I really feel like growing up, we subconsciously enforce masculinity on Black men because the plate is heavy when it comes to being a Black man in this world. And I feel like we can't show anything what people may deem as fragile, to cry, to speak with articulation, to wear skinny jeans, let alone be gay. So I feel when that lack of representation, when we don't see that, I feel like it's very easy, especially for heterosexual Black men, to feel like that to be that is an outcast, is to be a pariah of society. But then you have people like we talk about examples of Pharrell who are great at navigating their femininity, and I don't even want to call it that, but literally just them being themselves, and if that's outside of the norms, then that's just that. And I feel like people aren't really keen to listening to what's untraditional, or challenging to their beliefs, or their masculinity, if anything. Like I love people like Pharrell and Frank, Tyler the Creator, people who we see as like these odd characters, when really in reality they're just themselves. You know what I mean? So I feel like just because of that perspective and how people already think that's so untraditional and so out there, when it's really not, it's just another Black male.
I think status helps with that, though. Status helps with that a lot.
Sorry, James. It does.
Hold on, wait. So
I guess it's true for a lot of people, but I think there's a large demographic of people whose queerness is very, very visible, regardless of like things we put on besides our natural skin, like besides hair and makeup and clothes and things like that. I think people's natural like queerness is also very visible, and that has an effect on how society treats us. It like exists in the same space as their Blackness, rather than there's this that comes first. Like not everyone, I guess, can put a guise up and mask that part of their identity. So I missed a lot of what y'all said after that. So I just wanted to throw that in there just in case people were listening and that felt like they can't really hide that part of them.
That's super true.
I just wanted to just do just one, two more questions, just like the whole Black Lives Matter thing, and just how do we feel like about people, or like the Black community, I feel like not really including Black Lives Matter. Not really including Black Lives Matter, not really including the Black LGBT scope or spectrum within it. I think Becky posted something recently about like a picture about like this two, like a gay, like Black and something being like Black and gay, and there were like a whole bunch of comments about like, why y'all always gotta talk about y'all struggle when we talk about Black Lives Matter, and why can't y'all just wait, and it's not that time now, or about Black trans lives not really being included in the Black Lives Matter movement, like that whole thing.
I don't think it's necessarily the movement. I think it's the people that say they support the movement that put that on it. I think the movement itself, or the word itself, is general enough and is inclusive enough, but it is the problematic people that we're talking about that causes that to have that, I guess, effect.
Yeah, it rings in the same. It rings in the same area as All Lives Matter, where people,
yes,
act with All Lives Matter. When you say Black Lives Matter, like you don't really care about all lives if you don't care about Black lives, and you don't really care about Black lives if you are eliminating the Black queer lives. And I feel like the Black first kind of expression is something that a lot of these people run with. Like, you're Black first. All of those other issues you have to put on the back burner so that we can get this out the way. But a lot of them don't understand that we have to deal with these issues simultaneously. And the only way that we can effectively combat racism is if we combat homophobia and capitalism and patriarchy and all of that. And that happens in our own community. And people just ignore that and think that racism is the only issue that we deal with.
And I think a movement can only speak for the people
that are tied to it.
Exactly. So, and as we've talked about for the last however long, we are flawed as a community. There are so many fissures in who we are as a people that don't have us all being on the same path. So to me, it's perfectly congruent with where we are as a people that the Black Lives Matter movement doesn't really, I don't want to say accept, but doesn't really recognize fully the queer experience, or so. Obviously, it's wrong. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
it's right. I'm just saying, like, I don't expect a horse to fly. I don't expect a lot of these people who are so for Black lives to really encompass all of these Black lives, because a lot of people forget and also it's a lack of education, because a lot of people forget the position that queer people have in the movement for Black lives. If people really go back and want to see the people in Malcolm X's and Martin Luther King Jr.'s close circles, there were a lot of gay, intelligent people who were in the midst of all of that, but a lot of people don't want to delve into that. So
This one's very, very hard, James. This one's very difficult, if not one of the most difficult things to talk about, I think, because it is very like, ooh, this is the kind of thing that shakes the table. If we're talking about our expression, it's what we feel and outwardly share with the world and with ourselves about how we feel. You find yourself, you explore yourself, and then you share with everyone via your personal expression how you feel about yourself, how you love yourself, and how you want to be seen. I think, sort of in counter to what you're saying, Tom, is multiple people are saying that is something that you explore and find over time, versus being Black is not something that you do over time. You're just born with it and you have no choice because of it. And I'm not saying that your expression is a choice, or like being gay is a choice, or being queer is a choice. I'm not particularly saying that. For some it is, for some it isn't. But I think the uniting idea is that whether you want to be or whether you don't, every day, and even brought into this world, you were Black. I think that's what the argument is from the other side, which is stating that you're Black before you're anything else. And also sometimes unfairly Black, because I love being Black and I wouldn't want to be anything else. But do I love the struggles that come with being Black? Absolutely not. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and then, so that's what makes it difficult, because, I've even had someone argue with me and tell me that, and actually listened and tried to be open to it. Their statement was, okay, so now will it then become, Black Lives Matter that are trans, that have blonde hair, that name starts with R, that go to brunch on Tuesdays at 3:00. Someone has said that. Like, someone has really said, so are we just going to continue?
Wait.
I said, yes.
And I say, hell fucking yes, bitch, and what?
But then, no, and that's the truth, is like, if that's what you are, that's what you are. But I do think we do have to, and I don't agree with him with that stance whatsoever, but I do find an understanding of our society, which is very slow. And for our society, who are so not progressive the way that us five here are, including Tariq, they don't know how to fix the world because they are the problem. So we actually have to fix them one problem at a time, if that makes sense. It's really unfortunate. I don't like it. I want to be accepted in every sense of myself when I walk outside. But I know that someone who's closed-minded, you can't expect to be open-minded. Like you said, a horse to fly. You almost have to, like, shave a little bit away at a time, because they're so not progressive. They're not understanding. And we have to unlearn them. We have to their learnings are so flawed and toxic that it's kind of our responsibility. If, like, it's kind of crazy, it's like backwards, but the same way, if I'm going to parallel it, and I'll keep this quicker, but if I'm going to parallel it to me and Rain were having a conversation with my best friend about colorism versus the issues going on with the Black people, because he said all of this is really a colorism issue, and I do agree that ultimately, because worldwide everything is a colorism issue. The darker you are, the more finish the sentence. But right now we have to start with Black, because we're the ones that are disproportionately dying at the hands of the people who are supposed to save us. So ultimately, is it a colorism issue? Yes, because even Asians who are darker experience like racism in other ways. However, Asians who are darker aren't dying. So the thing is like, it's just so tricky, and this is why I say this is like the hardest one, because um, what you are is what you are, and you shouldn't change that, and you shouldn't want to diminish that for the sake of Black Lives Matter, because we are correct that like trans people are dying and no one cares, like no one cares, and the videos happen, and we're just like, okay, well, you know, looks to the left, but
And dying at the hands of our own people, which is the part that's like, how, what are you,
yeah,
how do you, I don't understand that. Being black and queer is such a unique and a unique experience that is just like subject to like vitriol from all angles. It seems like it seems like we are not safe at home. We are not safe outside. We are not safe in space. We are not like it just seems like we are not safe, and it. But you have to reconcile that with the fact that you are black. So you need to support this movement that doesn't support you. You know, and I'm not saying like Black
yes,
Lives Matter does
that's
not
it's the
support.
yes,
Yeah, it
yeah,
doesn't. I'm not saying that Black Lives Matter does not support, but like history has shown that like my life is in danger not only from white lives but from Black lives that matter. If that makes sense, you know. And it's hard. It's hard. Like sometimes I feel like a hypocrite because like yes, Black Lives Matter. Period. No questions. We ain't finna argue about that. If you argue with me, I'm about to hit you. But like then if I'm trying to explain that like my black queer lives matter to a black person and they're like no, then how dare I try to support your cause when you can't even support me? But I have to because I'm black. It's
But it's
hard.
insane. Like to be very, very honest, I have never in my life had sat down and had a conversation with someone, and not because I haven't tried. Like I would love to, like especially because like these conversations are great because not that we all have the same views, but we all kind of have the same experience. I would love to have a conversation with somebody who might not support the Black queer agenda or the Black queer experience because I, in my mind, could not cannot see myself coming out of that conversation with that person not being educated. Like obviously that
Oh,
person is deficient of some sense, and that's common. So, in my opinion, like it's something, you know, those things that you just don't understand. Like I don't understand how someone could literally be like, "Oh no, you're black queer." Like don't talk. Like it just literally doesn't make sense. It's actual stupidity. So like I try not to. Not that I try not to even like see it, but like it is like a tough situation to be in where like I have to be like, "Oh yeah, I support Black Lives Matter," even though they don't wholly encompass all that I am. But to be honest, I don't see anything in this world that fully supports me for who I am. That is the most. That is the one thing that does that the most, besides myself and my like mama. But besides that, we don't really have much because this dance community really ain't shit. So
it's
Period.
interesting. I mean, because even when you sort of see the video, like when you see the video of like a trans person sort of being beaten by other black people, um, if I'm going to be honest, that is true and that's real. Um, hi. Um, it is true and it's real. However, I think some things also become popularized because it's like, look, it's not about police. You guys are killing your own selves. And then I'm like, wait. Don't. I'm like, readjust the camera. Don't do it.
exactly,
I'm like,
exactly, exactly.
because you're right. That is an issue. It's a problem. It needs to be fixed. It's not okay, and it's not going to happen overnight. Um, but we just got to be careful right now because this time is so sensitive, and people are now using positions and allyship as a weapon as well.
Yes,
And
people
it's
are
just
waiting for us to fuck up.
so as for me, it's just like I think the minute that someone says, especially as a black queer person, that I don't support Black lives because trans lives matter don't matter. It's one less person that supports Black Lives Matter, and I think that's a problem. So
Yeah,
I just, and that's why I say it shakes the table because it goes against my belief because that girl's life. Stop, Brendan. You know, that woman's life, like, is so important to me personally, and I'm going to support that regardless. But we got to be on all defense and offense at all time, because who posted that video, and how did it amass so many views, and how is it the most popular thing when on TikTok Black people don't get views? So it's kind of like, oh, so now it's getting views. Why?
And how do you have time to stand there and record and you're not doing anything? Because I get it. I'm one person.
Like police. If it were police killing the trans, and it also has happened, but I'm just saying, that particular video, it's like, it's so difficult. I think a really big problem is that right now we're facing police brutality because it's a part of a system that's made to lessen us or either put us in a prison cell, which is privately owned, that feeds another white corporation. And I think that is the main thing that is like, that we're sort of fighting in this moment. And that's not what I agree with, but it's like choosing, like, at this day, if Hillary was a bad president, I still voted for her. You know what I'm saying? Because it would be worse. It would be better than Trump. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, although this is a problem and the problems still exist, sometimes we have to focus on something so that we can get something versus getting nothing at all, because we're not galvanizing as a unit, because that's really the only way to garner change. It's slower than we want it to be, but it's kind of the only way, especially since we're not at the top with the power, you know?
Yeah, we're trying to fix that problem, and then maybe if we fix that problem first, we can fix the interracial problems that we have within our own race. But we can't fix our own race when the majority race is breaking our race from the outside. So we can't fix the inside while the outside is being broken at the same time. So I guess got to choose a battle. But
my only issue with that is it almost sounds like it's at the expense of other people's lives.
It is.
And that hurts, because I'm like, I want to help them as much as I can, as much as possible. And the only way we can do that is by listening to them and by uplifting them. So we can't like just place it as something to deal with later, because it's their lives and we don't have to deal with transphobia. Like we can check it when we see it, but it's not like we're victims of it. So people who are experiencing that, who are very much speaking loudly, it's just that they don't really have the same platforms as others and like cisgender Black people or heterosexual Black people. And I feel like uplifting them and listening to them will bring us together as a unit so that we can fight bigger things together. So I'm looking at it as a more of a fix our inside so we can combat the outside collectively and as a unit, rather than fight the outside separated, because then that leaves us still vulnerable and open, not only to attacks by like white supremacists, but also by transphobes, homophobes, sexist folks, and anyone who exists to make Black lives or make it harder for other Black people in their own community.
Yeah,
it's like that simultaneous defense offense. Yeah, I feel that.
Mm-hmm.
It's tricky.
That hurt me.
That's what I said, because we just don't know how to do it. I mean, first off, we shouldn't be dealing with it.
We don't have the tools.
Yeah, we have so many things, and then anybody that's conservative, like a Candace Owens, their only argument is Black on Black crime, and then you be like, well, what about everybody else? You know, so I know. Or
don't even with Candace Owens.
We're not.
Between her dead ends and the fact that she did not get beat as a child.
Your dead color.
But it's other guys too that be feeling the same way, and this is funny to like watch us up. Anyway, last question. Wrap it up. What solutions can we take to really elevate Black queer voices, Black LGBT voices, Black voices, or Black people in the Black community? Like, what can we do to elevate our voices? What can we do? What solutions do we think we can come up with? How can we do this to make Black people listen to us or just be accepting of us? Or love us? I don't know.
Tom.
One thing, oh, I wish I wrote this quote down by my sis, um, Dominique. Shit, how do I not know her last name? A lot of us recently became familiar with her from playing on Pose, Electra,
Hmm.
but she talks about basically not feeling for acceptance
Oh
and
yeah.
tolerance. She talks about demanding respect instead, which comes from educating. Like if you educate someone, you come to an understanding. They understand you and they can respect you. If they misunderstand you, that's when the ignorance takes over and you get things like hate crimes and stuff like that. So she talks about not allowing people to have the power to accept you or tolerate you, because that then means that you're like bad behavior that is allowed to live in their space rather than a human. So one way I guess we can elevate more voices like that is by educating. I say use the schools, put in programs in schools, and start at a young age, because children are so smart, and they're sponges, and they can literally understand the concept. My 8-year-old nephew understands gender and sexuality more than his own father, who's 30. So I'm like, if you break it down to young children, then they won't grow up learning all the ignorance and the hate that's already readily available to them in media and in their own homes.
And
Um,
that's what they call the gay agenda. Oh, mind blown.
exactly. When the real thing is a straight agenda that's been literally infecting us since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think putting information in schools and having qualified teachers instruct and literally have conversations about this with children, I feel like that will make a huge shift.
And on our day to day, anytime you hear somebody say some transphobic, some homophobic shit, you nip that in the butt right then in that moment. Don't, because obviously it's difficult. When I was maybe a little bit younger, I might have been like, "Ooh, maybe you shouldn't have said that." But it's like, how dare you? That is so disgusting. Like, you have to come at them with the heat, because then they won't get it. Because obviously they're coming from a place of ignorance, and ignorance needs to be shaken to be eradicated.
Mhm.
So like, I think that in our day to day, we have to champion these people that sometimes don't have that voice, who aren't being listened to, like Tom was saying.
Can I just add one more thing? I forgot this. Conversation, I guess. Yeah, conversation is one of the best ways at the base level, but it's not always verbal. You can always include it in your art and your work life, business, profession, anything like that. Dance, paintings, poetry, all of that included in spaces where people are listening in a different way.
I honestly think that it is up to us, meaning us as an artist, to move that conversation forward and to move this movement forward. Because what we do is we hold this whole quote, like art is a mirror of life, and so like people have to see that just because I'm gay, just because I'm black, just because I'm Latino, just because I'm a transgender, just because I'm Asian, that I am no different than what you are. So we really truly have to be that mirror, and that starts with like representation. Like the fact that I can probably only name 4 or 5 movies, and that's going on the higher end, that like I can identify with, or and the fact that like a trans person literally probably has what just Pose,
Okay.
probably just Pose to like identify with, or an Asian person probably only saw like Crazy Rich Asians or
Parasite.
Parasite, and even like get to the nuance of that, like that's a Korean movie. Like there needs to be a Chinese movie, there needs to be a Japanese movie, stuff like that. Like there needs to be a mass introduction of the world we live in to the people of the world we live in, which sounds so crazy. Like we are here. I am black. I am gay. I am a dancer. I am a singer. I am an actor. That does not mean that I am any different than you, who is black, who is straight, who is cisgender, who works in a law firm or whatever.
Or who does OnlyFans.
Who or
Don't knock OnlyFans. Don't knock. I don't have one.
I'm
But
not
babe, the girls be making their coin.